right, good morning and welcome to the joint hearing of the Committees on Energy and Environmental Protection and Committee on Economic Development. It is Tuesday, February 14th, 9 a.m., conference room 325. We have one bill on this agenda, House Bill 239 relating to clean energy. This requires the Clean Energy Initiative program to implement and administer a plan to increase jobs aligned with the transition to a clean energy economy, and adds some references to equity into the Hawaii Clean Energy Initiative. First up to testify we have, State Energy Office.
We stand for their testimony and support.
Thank you. And then University of Hawaii.
Representing the University of Hawaii Community College, and we stand for our written testimony and support.
Thank you. And let's see, then we have written testimony submitted from the Climate Commission in support, Rainbow Family 808 in support, Democratic Party of Hawaii Labor Caucus in support, IATSE 665 in support, Environmental Caucus of the Democratic Party of Hawaii in support, Climate Protectors Hawaii.
Good morning, Chair Lowen, Vice Chair Cochran, Ted Boland on behalf of the Climate Protectors Hawaii. I think this bill is a good idea. We need to make a transition to a clean energy economy, and this bill would also recognize social equity, which is important because the transition will affect different people different ways, and we need to take that into account. It also has workforce development, increasing jobs, so I think it's a good bill all around and urge the committee to pass it. Thank you for the opportunity to testify.
Thank you. And then Democratic Party of Hawaii Education Caucus in support, IMUA Alliance in support, Hawaii State Youth Commission in support, Blue Planet Foundation in support, 350 Hawaii in support, Sierra Club of Hawaii in support, and then we have 3 individuals in support, 1 in opposition, 1 with comments. Is there anyone else here to testify on this measure, or anyone on Zoom? Right. If not, members, any questions? Go ahead.
Question for the Energy Office, please. Morning. So in your testimony, you mentioned Good Jobs Hawaii, the federally funded program, and I note that it's you folks are working with the community colleges particularly, but I was wondering if this measure also can help bring the unions into this work, and what that collaboration looks like. If you could give us a little bit of color on that.
I'd like to introduce Cam Black, who's very familiar with the program. Thank you.
Good morning, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committees. Cameron Black, as Maria said, Renewable Energy Program Manager, Hawaii State Energy Office. So Good Jobs Hawaii is a kind of collaboration between multi-sectors and workforce development efforts, and one of those is the Good Jobs Challenge, which is a federal grant program competitively won by UH that includes clean energy sector, and we were the sector lead under the Good Jobs Challenge federal award grant. And as part of that, to answer your question, get to your answer, is unions, IBEW 1186 and 1260 are members and partners, along with about 9 or 10 other organizations and companies here in Hawaii to support the clean energy sector development, workforce development program. So the unions have been involved and supportive of Good Jobs Challenge, which is fed into Good Jobs Hawaii.
So just those 2 in the electrical worker sector?
There's a lot more. Hawaiian Electric, KIUC,
No, but I mean like in terms of unions.
There's the Hawaii Carpenters Training Fund, not yet in the Good Jobs Challenge.
Okay.
We do tend to engage more, like Maria mentioned, the Boilermakers. I mean, yeah, said that correctly.
We can talk about it more offline. Thanks so much. Thanks, Chair.
Yeah, they'll definitely be involved,
Okay,
for sure.
Appreciate that.
Rep Nakamura.
Yes, I'm wondering, does this duplicate what is in the bill, this Good Jobs Hawaii program, or is it similar? Or are there any differences between what's proposed in the bill and Good Jobs Hawaii?
Yeah, it's consistent and possibly even complementary, I would say, because the timing is right, because Good Jobs Hawaii is just starting. It just kind of kicked off in the beginning of this year. So we're in the process now of gathering the clean energy sector partners, including the unions, to identify what the workforce needs are, coming from the employers who will be hiring these people. And then we'll be working with the partnership to get those training needs, whether it's through UH community colleges ideally or through other training entities. I think this bill also requires us to have a longer-term plan under the Hawaii Clean Energy Initiatives, which would be complementary in my vision to that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Chair.
Thanks. Any further questions, members? Right, if not, I think we can go straight into decision-making. We're going to go ahead and move this forward, just affecting the date to June 30th, 3000. EEP members, any discussion? If not, Vice Chair, please take the vote.
Hang on, sorry. Voting on HB 239, Chair elects to pass with amendments. Chair and Vice Chair vote aye. And let's see, Chair, Member Gates is excused, and Member Kahaloa?
Aye.
Aye. And Member Peruso?
Aye.
Aye. And Mr. Woodson is excused, and also Rep. Ward. And Chair, your measure is adopted.
Thank you, and over to EDD.
Economic Development, same recommendation.
ECD members voting on HB 239, recommendation of the chair is to pass with amendments. Chair and Vice Chair vote aye. Member Hussey Burdick.
Aye.
Member Kong, excuse. Member Nakamura.
Aye.
Member Quinlan, excuse. Member Pierrick, excuse. Chair, your recommendation is adopted.
Thank you very much.
Great, and we are adjourned. All right, we are back with our 9:10 a.m. agenda, Committee on Energy and Environmental Protection. It is Tuesday, February 14th. We are in room 325. And first up on the agenda this morning is House Bill 1303 relating to water conservation. This appropriates funds to the counties, provided they match the funds to create pilot programs to incentivize irrigation replacements or landscaping replacements that would reduce water use and save water. And first up to testify is the Board of Water Supply.
Good morning, Chair and members of the committee. My name is Kathy Mitchell. I'm with the Board of Water Supply. The Board of Water Supply supports House Bill 1303, and we have a small ask notwithstanding the misnomer in our testimony, but the BWS respectfully requests that the Committee on Energy and Environmental Protection name the BWS as a direct recipient of funds to establish an irrigation water use reduction pilot program. Additionally, the BWS requests the committee consider lowering the required match by the BWS to 40% instead of a dollar-for-dollar basis. Thank you.
Thank you. And then DLNR in support. Leo?
Hello, Chair, Vice Chair, Kaleo Manny, Deputy with the Water Commission. The department stands on its written testimony in support as long as it doesn't affect the priorities of the executive budget. I'm here for any questions.
Thank
Mahalo.
you. And then we have Environmental Caucus of the Democratic Party of Hawaii in support. Landscape Industry Council of Hawaii in support. National Association of Landscape Professionals in support, and 2 individuals in support. Is there anyone else here to testify in person or on Zoom? All right, if not, members, any questions? All right, I have a question for, I guess, Board of Water Supply. I guess we want to, as we move this bill forward, maybe provide some more detail. Well, I guess first of all, based on your testimony, what's the reasoning? I mean, why is a 40% match instead of 50% match? Is there a specific reason that number makes a difference? I mean, this is essentially kind of a donation to the counties as it stands.
Yeah, because the certain counties weren't named, we were also thinking of the smaller water utilities. And we do have programs for water conservation, but we have also a lot of other things going on that have increased our budget items. Red Hill is one of them, so that's what we provide an incentive.
Got it.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, wait, I'm sorry, I did have further questions. So recommendation from the Landscape Industry Council of Hawaii, they said, their testimony said while they appreciated the inclusion of native plants and pollinator, or, plants that support pollinators in the language, it might really limit the options, and they preferred it was narrowed, it was kind of kept specific to just reducing water use. They recommended, in order to qualify for a rebate, that there should be a 30% reduction. Kind of demonstrated over time. And I think we would really leave it to Board of Water Supply if they chose to implement this and use the state funds being offered to kind of flesh out the details of that program. But do those parameters sound reasonable?
We'd have to take a look at it. We haven't heard from the landscape industry.
Okay. Does 30% reduction, I mean, obviously if we're going to give people rebates to redo their landscape and their irrigation, we would want to, provide that there was some sort of proof they were reducing water use.
I'll take it back to Ernie.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Manager Lau.
Let's see, Water Commission, Kaleo. Do you have any thoughts? I mean, since Board of Water Supply isn't sure yet, do you have any thoughts on, I don't know if this is your area of expertise at all, but whether a 30% reduction, in these dry areas is kind of a reasonable
Sufficient.
to kind of tackle the bigger, more wasteful landscape installations, and maybe having those be
Let me start, but then I
redone.
also have staff here, our drought coordinator for the state, so he may be able to actually add some industry recommendations, or you don't know. So in general, I think setting metrics is a great idea. You could start at like reducing by 30%, 25%, and then using the bills to really justify if we're seeing a decrease in use. To be honest, this is a really great investment of state funding. When wells right now, as Board of Water Supply has talked about, cost 10 to 15 million to develop for 1 million gallons worth of water. If we can reduce that use just via conservation, if we're spending $1 million or $2 million to do it, we're already saving money as a state. So that's just my general recommendation. I don't know if you have anything to add.
the testimony, I'd have to pull it up, but I think the testimony from Landscape Industry Council of Hawaii estimated it could save up to 100
100
million
million.
gallons per year.
Yeah, eventually, I think over time, it definitely will help with freeing up water for additional growth and use, especially in our leeward areas where we see a lot of high water use, especially during dry months.
Yeah. I would say too, with such a push, which we all support, to build more affordable housing, that water conservation is especially important, because without water, we can't build housing.
Absolutely, and then also to ensure that there's this sustainable water source available for especially our affordable housing developments into the future in an unknown climate. Definitely, this is one tool that we can use as a state to really help ensure our water security. Do you want to add anything? Here, try, go ahead. Come.
Well, morning.
I guess if you have any expertise, because
Expertise.
landscape-
I would just say, sorry, Neil Fuji with the Water Commission, working for Khalil. The one challenge I might see is actually finding or establishing or verifying the reduction, right? So how do you do that? Like, there's programs on the mainland where you do full turf replacement, so you pull out all your landscaping, and that's automatic that you don't have any irrigation. So in this case, if putting a metric on it or a requirement, that's the only maybe challenging to verify that. And Board of Water Supply, they have meters on their customers, but is that the burden's going to be probably on
the burden
on
would be, I think,
yeah.
on Board of Water Supply to verify.
That's all I had.
Because, for the use of state funds.
Yeah, thanks.
Would you have the Landscape Industry Council's testimony also recommended removing, we had put some language in there also referencing native plants and plants that support pollinators, and they said while they support the intent, that it really limits the options they might have. And so do you have an opinion on that, since they're not here to ask?
Yeah, good question. I'm not a plant expert, but as I understand it, there are a pretty good selection of low water, drought tolerant natives, that grow in these certain climates. So whether or not they're available is that the challenge? But that's my understanding. But I do know that there are a number of these natives that can survive in hot, drier areas on the leeward side.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great.
Thanks.
Thank you. Thanks. Persa, go ahead.
I have a quick question for Khalil or DLNR.
Sure.
So going
for
back
it.
to this pollinator question and native plants, this is something that's near and dear to my heart, and it seems to me like I hear them asking for this exemption because they say that it would complicate the verification process. But in my mind, it would actually make the verification process somewhat easier because you just take pictures of the plants and submit them. But and I guess we're talking about like the availability of these plants, but could this bill also function as a way to signal to the market that there's a market, there's a demand for these plants, there's an incentive to grow these kinds of plants? Because I am concerned about pollinators in particular.
Great questions, Rep. Peruso. I'm not an expert, again, on these things as well, trying to stay in our water lane, but I do think it's an opportunity to have this multi-benefit investment in creating market, showing the market that we need more native plants or place-based, right,
Yeah.
type of landscaping that could then ultimately help us in our water security in the future. And it is in line with kind of just living within the environment that you have and using water that is available and not investing in, bringing it into places that, cost a lot of money, take a lot of energy to get there. It does make a lot of sense. And these are really, again, as a pilot, gives us a first step to really test the waters and see if that market can grow or if there's an opportunity for this to be applied throughout the state. We're really interested in the data and the metrics from the Water Commission side, because if this does pan out, it's, again, with $1 million or $2 million, we could generate quite a bit of water versus continuing to develop water sources. It's just another source augmentation strategy.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Follow-up question, I guess, that I hadn't thought much about that as, the pilot project would also sort of provide data on how much savings can be accomplished through the, landscape, changes to landscaping, et cetera. So maybe, yeah, would that be something that would help inform work at the commission?
Yeah, absolutely. I think for us, it would help us to, if we could develop some metrics or some kind of way to track that, working with the board, obviously, if the board or even Hawaii County, as they roll out this program, you know, how many of those rebates initiated, how much are native plants, how much are pollinators, what's the effect of their water reduction, how are we tracking that over time? And then once you set a base, you can continue to look at, okay, have we seen an improvement in conservation efforts, and what did that actually equate to over the annual? And then we could multiply that, right, and use that as a metric to grow the program or incentivize other types of conservation efforts throughout the state.
Great, so maybe we'll add a report requirement just to track the metrics.
Yeah, I think it'd be useful for the Water Commission to have that kind of data.
Great, all right,
Thank
thank you
you.
so much. Any further questions? Great. All right. If not, second bill on our agenda today is House Bill 837 relating to the state plan. This establishes green infrastructure objectives, policies, and priority guidelines for state facility systems, infrastructure, and transit projects in the Hawaii State Planning Act. Just to, you know, add more trees and green infrastructure, et cetera. So first up to testify is the Office of the Governor, State of Hawaii, with comments. Nani Maderas, Chief Housing Officer. Signed up to testify in person. Is anyone present? Not present. Next, State of Hawaii Climate Change Mitigation and Adaptation Commission in support. The Office of Planning and Sustainable Development.
Morning, Chair and Vice Chair and members. I'm Mary Alice Evans with the Office of Planning and Sustainable Development on behalf of Scott Glenn, the Director. We support this measure and we offer an amendment because the Greenhouse Gas Sequestration Task Force hasn't had any funding for about 4 years, and it's been a struggle to try to make sure that we fulfill the mandate that the legislature gave us for that. So we do offer an amendment. Thank you.
All right, DLNR in support.
Good morning, Heather McMillan with the Urban Forestry Program of DLNR.
Thank you. Environmental Caucus of the Democratic Party of Hawaii in support. Hawaii Reef and Ocean Coalition in person.
Thank you, Chair Lowen, Vice Chair Cochran, Ted Boland for the Hawaii Reef and Ocean Coalition, and Climate Protectors Hawaii on this as well. Green infrastructure is a range of measures that use plant or soil systems, including trees, permeable pavement, and other permeable surfaces or substrates, stormwater harvest and reuse, or landscaping to conserve water and reduce flow to sewer systems or surface waters. I open with that just because a lot of people might not understand what this bill is about. So I think it's important to understand the definition. I think this is a bill of just good planning. It's using trees and vegetation and other means to preserve our water so that it doesn't flow off. It also will, with trees, cool the urban landscape and contribute to mitigation of climate change. So I think this is a very positive bill, and I ask the committee to approve it, please. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And then we have individual testimony, 6 in support, 1 in opposition. Is there anyone else here to testify on this measure in person or on Zoom? Members' questions? Quick question, I guess, for Office of Planning. Just to clarify, as Ted pointed out, the kind of subject matter of the bill is about you know, quality of life, including shade and cooling and integrating, you know, trees and green areas and more permeable surfaces into planning. I think it wouldn't be an impact large enough to sort of be a carbon offset or, I mean, you know, every tree helps, but, you know, it's not really about carbon sequestration, so did you
The Greenhouse
read the
Gas
bill?
Sequestration Task Force has a sub-mandate on urban forestry and urban canopy to reduce heat stress. It also focuses on improving soil health. So I think it's actually a pretty good how do you call it, synergy with that program.
When is the greenhouse gas sequestration task force final report coming?
It's due, I think, in 2025. And the task force itself does not have a sunset date, so it's a permanent task force of the state.
Okay, all right, thanks. I have further, and I guess no one is here. Nani Madero submitted testimony, is not here to ask questions of again. So maybe climate protectors, maybe you can answer this question. There were comments submitted about concerns this would impact and add costs to affordable housing. I'm having a hard time figuring out how that conclusion was reached, but in your reading of the bill, do you see this as impacting the cost of affordable housing?
I do not. I certainly don't speak for the Office of Housing, but I, in reading the bill, don't see how this would apply. It applies to government projects, it applies to planning, but I don't think it would, I don't see how it would increase costs.
That's what I thought too.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Any further questions, members? All right. If not, moving on to next bill on the agenda, House Bill 575 relating to gasoline-powered leaf blowers. This prohibits sale and operation of gas-powered leaf blowers. My first up to testify is the Climate Commission in support. State Department of Transportation on Zoom. Not present. In support. Attorney General on Zoom with comments. Not present. Oh, come forward.
Morning, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. I'm Deputy Attorney General Lyle Leonard. The department has recognized the preemption issue here and available for any questions you might have.
Thank you. Department of Health with comments.
Morning, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. My name is Sean Haruna. I'm with the Department of Health Noise Section. I'm available for any questions, and we stand by our testimony.
Thank you. Honolulu Police on Zoom.
Aloha, Chair Lowen and members. My name is Brian Lynch. I'm the Major of District 7 with HPD. The HPD opposes the passage of House Bills 575. We stand on our written testimony, and I'm available for questions.
Thank you. Let's see, we have Outdoor Power Equipment Institute in opposition. Retail Merchants of Hawaii on Zoom. In opposition, not present. And then we have 6 individuals in support, 2 in opposition, and 1 with comments. Is there anyone else here to testify? Sorry, I missed you. You did sign up. Ted Boland.
I did sign
as
up.
an individual, please come forward.
Yes, testify as an individual, Ted Boland, and I feel strongly that this bill is a good environmental measure. Noise pollution is not typically thought of the way, by most people, the way you think of water pollution or air pollution, but it does affect human health. It does affect people's mindset. It can do a lot of damage to people, mental and physical. The bill as written seeks to regulate based on air pollution. I have submitted comments, including proposed amendments, that would focus instead on noise. And as the Attorney General mentioned, there are questions about air preemption, and therefore I think it's more appropriate to do it based on noise. And as I said at the outset, noise is a real harm to people and is a basis for regulating leaf blowers, which operate at around 90 decibels. So that can be quite upsetting to people, quite disruptive, not just early in the morning and late in the afternoon, but you know, if you're in the building during the day, it can be disruptive as well. So I think this is as amended, this would be a good bill, and I strongly urge passage. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that I missed on Zoom or in person? If not, members, any questions?
I like the noise part.
Was someone here, did Department of Health, were they here in person on this bill? Oh, please come forward. I guess the health impacts of noise is not something we talk about very often, but can you tell us a little bit about the impacts to human health of sort of living in noisy neighborhoods or being exposed to noise?
As far as this bill goes, like Mr. Bolin was saying, there may be some preemption, but there are a few other bills in this session that may help to strengthen the leaf blower law that's in place in 342F. As far as noise and health effects, of course, hearing loss. Secondaries could be stress, heart issues, a whole bunch of things, but directly it's just hearing loss.
All right, okay, thank you. All right, if no further questions, we'll move on. Next bill on the agenda, House Bill 256 relating to organic waste. This requires each county to incorporate in its integrated solid waste management plans provisions to divert organic waste from landfills. First up to testify, we have Department of Health in support. Bless you.
Good morning, Chair Lowen, Vice Chair Cochran, and members of the committee. My name is Michael Burke. I'm with the Department of Health. We submitted written testimony on HB 256, and we stand on our written testimony, and I'm available if there are questions. Thank you.
Thank you. And then Climate Commission in support, Hawaii Alliance for Progressive Action in support, Environmental Caucus of the Democratic Party of Hawaii in support, Climate Protectors Hawaii.
Thank you again, Chair Lowen, Vice Chair Cochran, members of the committee. Ted Boland on behalf of the Climate Protectors Hawaii. The organic waste in landfills creates methane, which is a climate issue. It's important to get organic waste out of the landfill. And so I think this bill moves in that direction, and we urge passage. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Hawaii Farmers Union United in support, Kauai Climate Action Coalition in support, and then we have Matt Geyer in person.
Aloha, Chair Lowen, Representative Vice Chair Cochran, Representative Peruzzo, Representative Kalaloa. Happy Valentine's Day. Thank you so much for hearing this bill. I'm Matt Geyer. I'm a member of Hawaii Environmental Change Agents, and I just really wanted to appreciate all of you. Lots of love to all of you for supporting these environmental bills. Really, really important. We've got so many environmental problems coming, so thank you for hearing, and please support HB 256.
Thank you. And then we have 6 additional individuals who submitted testimony in support. Is there anyone else here to testify on this measure? If not, members, any questions? I think I'll move on to the next bill. I have some questions for DOH, but these 2 bills deal with the same subject matter, so maybe I'll save them till after. So next up, we have House Bill 895 relating to organic waste diversion. Again, this updates the state's integrated solid waste management goals and priorities to include organic waste diversion. And first up to testify on this is Department of Health.
Good morning again, Chair Lowen, Vice Chair Cochran, and members of the committee. My name is Michael Burke. I'm with the Department of Health. We submitted written testimony in support of HB 895 and stand on our written testimony, and I'll be here for your questions after. Thank you.
Thank you. And we have the Climate Commission in support, Environmental Caucus of the Democratic Party of Hawaii in support, West Maui Green Cycle, Zero Waste Maui on Zoom.
I think Ms. Lozano is en route, so she probably won't be on.
Okay.
She's driving.
Okay. So not present, but written testimony in support. Ted Boland, Climate Protectors Hawaii.
I'll stand on my written testimony in support.
Thank you. Hawaii Farmers Union United on Zoom.
Aloha, good morning, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. Hunter Heppelin here on behalf of the Hawaii Farmers Union United. We'd like to stand in support of our written testimony and really want to just highlight this as an important mechanism to be working upstream to develop a waste into a resource to support the further expansion of our agricultural industry, which can hopefully hasten meeting some of the goals that we've set for local food production and consumption. Happy to answer any questions related to the structure of the bill or some of the timelines and goals therein. And appreciate the opportunity to testify.
Great, thank you. And then we have 3 additional individuals with testimony and support, and Zero Waste Oahu in support. Anyone else here to testify on this measure in person or on Zoom? If not, members' questions? Okay, Department of Health. I guess my main question is just relating to the appropriation in this and whether an appropriation is really necessary if solid waste management is falls as part of the kuleana of the counties. Should we be setting aside funds to pay them to do their work that already falls under their duties? What are your thoughts on that?
I mean, I really would hate to speak for the counties in case they do need the funding. I think that it would be unfair to require a new element without, giving them the chance to opine. Although, well, I guess they did have a chance to opine. But the fact is that, currently we do have statutes that direct the counties what they need to focus on as the elements and the components for their integrated solid waste management plans. So adding this to that, I wouldn't necessarily be opposed to. And then should it be something where the costs just are significant, and we don't know also too, right? That's part of it is speculation. And I think like we mentioned in our testimony, Kauai isn't going to need to update their plan for almost 10 years from now. But since we don't know what those costs are yet, it's hard to say, yes, please appropriate $500,000 at this time, and we don't know what the impact would be. So I would say, yeah, if the appropriations came out, then I think that we would be okay with that, and we'd work with the counties to figure out a solution.
Yeah. Does the Kauai's plan that was just completed does it address organic waste diversion at all?
I'll have to get back to you on that. I wasn't the lead on that on the state side, but we'll take a look and I'll email you if you don't mind.
Have, at least in the past, have some of the counties' integrated solid waste management plans included organic waste?
Yeah, I believe
incineration?
CCH does.
Okay.
City and County of Honolulu does.
Okay, got it. Okay, I think that's all the questions I have.
Thank you.
Any further questions, members? Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. We will move on to, where am I? 185 relating to the Environmental Advisory Council. This just makes a housekeeping amendment to delete a reference to a section that we repealed in 2020, I think. And we have the State Environmental Advisory Council in support on Zoom. Yes.
Aloha, Chair Loa and Vice Chair Cochran and members of the committee. Thank you for hearing this bill and making this cleanup amendment. The Environmental Advisory Council is in support and we stand on our testimony. Thank you.
Thank you. And then Office of Planning and Sustainable Development in support. Thank you. Anyone else here to testify on this measure? If not, members' questions. If not, last bill on our agenda. Rep Ward's not here for his bill, so I don't know. Maybe he'll show up. But this is House Bill 927 relating to energy, and this establishes within the Hawaii State Energy Office the Future Fusion Task Force to promote the use of fusion as an energy source in the state. And first up to testify, we have Hawaii State Energy Office.
We'll stand on our testimony with comments. Thank you.
Thank you. And then the Ho'opa'ipono Peace Project in opposition. We have Malu Aina in opposition. We Are One Inc. in opposition. Kauai Women's Caucus in opposition. Our Revolution Hawaii on Zoom.
Good morning, and thank you all for your dedication to protecting our climate. There's nothing clean, safe, or efficient about nuclear fusion technology. Nuclear fusion is dirty, dangerous, and expensive. Nuclear fusion as an energy source is decades away from maybe being a reality. Scientists say we have less than a decade to achieve necessary changes to avoid climate catastrophe. So this technology won't arrive in time. Please don't buy the hype. Pursuing nuclear fusion would undermine our progress towards 100% truly clean, renewable energy and take us in the wrong direction. I've been actively participating in preventing nuclear power and nuclear bombs being made for decades, and I've met with many scientists in this regard, and we've been promised since the 1950s that the nuclear energy would be providing us clean, safe energy, and it has turned out to be absolutely bogus, and it's never going to happen. So anyway, just thank you so much for hearing me, and please oppose this. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Then we have Linda Williams in opposition on Zoom.
Aloha. Thank you so much for allowing me to testify. My camera's not working, so I'm just going to say aloha. I submitted testimony, which I stand by in opposition, and I just wanted to add that in addition to everything the previous speaker testified to, there are other energy sources of the future that we should be pursuing, and that includes tidal and wave power, and maybe look at geothermal again, but certainly not fusion, especially because it would require, amending the Constitution, which seems drastic and possibly a Trojan horse to try to reintroduce fission power. So thank you for your consideration, and please vote no on this dangerous and dirty bill. Thanks.
Thank you. And then we have Greg Misakian on Zoom. Not present. And then we have a total of 33 testimonies from individuals in opposition, 4 in support. Is there anyone else here to testify on this measure in person or on Zoom? If not, members, any questions? All right, if not, we will recess for decision making. All right, we are back for decision-making, Committee on Energy and Environmental Protection, 9:10 a.m. agenda. First up is House Bill 1303 relating to water conservation. So we're gonna leave the appropriation blank for now, but note a recommended amount of, we'll go 600,000, provided the county provides a 40% match. We will also change the appropriation language to specify the appropriations going to City and County of Honolulu Board of Water Supply as the recipient. We're going to remove the pilot for West Hawaii because sadly Hawaii County Board of Water Supply is not interested in doing this. So we'll make this only for Oahu. We will allow that Board of Water Supply will have the discretion to kind of outline the details of the program, but we'll put some parameters in there. So the rebate amount, that can be decided by Board of Water Supply, but we'll say not more than $1,500 per project. We will change the language surrounding native plants and pollinators so it can be retained in there as a preference, but not necessarily a requirement. And then we will add that to qualify for the rebate, Board of Water Supply must verify a 30% reduction in water use. And to qualify for the rebate, the work has to be performed by a licensed landscaper and contractor in good standing with CCCA. And we will add a report back to the legislature for this, and then defect the date of the bill to June 30th, 3000. And the report back to the legislature should include some of those metrics of water reduction and how the implementation of the program and just some information that can be used to kind of further this work in the future. All right, with that, members, any discussion? If not, Vice Chair, please take the vote.
Voting on HB 1303, Chair elects to pass with amendments. Chair and Vice Chair both vote aye. I'm noting the excused absences of Reps. Gates, Woodson, and Ward. Members, anyone voting no or with reservations? Seeing none, Chair, your measure is adopted.
Thank you. House Bill 837 relating to the state plan. This has technical amendments needed for clarity, consistency, and style. We will adopt the amendments of the outdoor circle and defect the date to June 30th, 3000. And move this forward. Members, any discussion? If not, Vice Chair, please take the vote.
Voting on HB 837. Chair elects to pass with amendments. Both Chair and Vice Chair vote ayes. Excused are Gates, Woodson, and Ward. Any members here voting no or with reservations? Seeing none, Chair, your measure is adopted.
Thank you. And House Bill 575 relating to gasoline-powered leaf blowers. We will adopt the amendments suggested by Ted Boland to frame this more to be around noise rather than emissions. Technical amendments as needed, and then we will add a savings clause and a severability clause, and then defect the date to June 30th, 3000. Members, any discussion? If not, Vice Chair, please take the vote.
Voting on HB 575, Chair elects to pass with amendments. Chair and Vice Chair vote aye. Excused are Reps. Gates, Woodson, and Ward. Members, anyone voting no or with reservations? Seeing none, Chair, your measure is adopted.
Thank you. And for House Bill 256, we're going to incorporate the language into the next bill. So we're going to defer this bill. So HB 256 is deferred.
So this is deferred.
Yeah. And then moving on to House Bill 895. For this, we're going to incorporate the language from HB 256 into HB 895. We're going to remove the appropriation amounts, though. We're not including any appropriation to the counties, just under the assumption some of them are already doing this. This clearly already falls under their duties of solid waste management, and this is just clarifying in state law that they should do it, and then adding those goals to state law as well. we will adopt Department of Health suggested amendment to specify the wood waste should be untreated as well as unpainted. And then on pages 4 and 5, for those various benchmarks, we're going to add January 1st in front of those dates. So all the dates will be January 1st and then the various future goals. And then we will defect the date to June 30th, 3000. So with that, members, any discussion? All right, if not, Vice Chair, please take the vote.
Voting on HB 895, Chair elects to pass with amendments. Chair, Vice Chair vote ayes and excuse Reps Gates, Woodson, and Ward. Any members here voting no or with reservations? Seeing none, Chair, your measure is adopted.
Thank you. And then House Bill 185, this is the housekeeping amendment to repeal, delete the reference to a section that's already been repealed. So I think this one we can pass as is and leave the date effective. Members, any discussion? If not, Vice Chair, when you're ready.
All right, ready? Voting on HB 185, Chair elects to pass as is, and Chair and Vice Chair vote aye. Excuse are Reps Gates, Woodson, and Ward. Any members here voting no or with reservations? Seeing none, Chair, your measure is adopted.
Great, and then last bill on the agenda, House Bill 927. This is establishing a future fusion task force. Just based on testimony, we're going to defer this at this time. And that is all that we have on the agenda today, so we are adjourned.
dishwasher next.
Aloha, everyone. We are convening the Joint Committees on Transportation and Energy and Environmental Protection for the purposes of our 10:30 a.m. agenda on Tuesday, February 14th, 2023. Happy Valentine's Day, everyone. And we're going to get straight into it with HB 1165 relating to carbon offsets. First, we're going to try and get a hold of the Department of Transportation.
Good morning, Chair Todd, Chair Lowen, Melissa Miranda-Johnson with Department of Transportation. We'll be standing on our testimony and support, and we have staff available online for any questions.
All right, thank you very much. Next, we have Ted Bolin from Climate Protectors Hawaii. Good morning, Chair Todd, Chair Lowen, Vice Chair Kila, and Vice Chair Cochran, and members of the committees. Ted Bolin on behalf of the Climate Protectors Hawaii. I submitted written testimony expressing a lot of concern about carbon offsets. There's lots of evidence that they are being used around the world, mostly for the benefit of corporations that are claiming to be carbon neutral on the basis of the offsets that they're purchasing or planning to purchase. And then when you look at the projects that are actually implemented, they're not doing anything very soon or not at all. So there's some real limitations on carbon offsets. I would soften my opposition to this bill, though, because I think if you do a project in Hawaii, it can have some benefits, and if they're verified, it could be a good thing. So I wouldn't support the bill, but I wouldn't oppose. But really, and I'm more in the category of comments now, and we want to make sure that these offsets actually do some good. Thank you very much. All right, thank you. Next available in person, we have Henry Curtis from Life of the Land.
Aloha, committee members and chairs, vice chairs. I'm Henry Curtis, Executive Director of Life of the Land. We concur that we have a lot of problems with offsets, but what we want to raise particular with these committees is litigation. There has been a rise around the world of lawyers seeking to find ways of going after businesses and governments that claim certain offsets that don't actually materialize. For example, on the Hawaiian Airlines website, it lists 2 sites which they use for carbon offsets. One of them is Alto Mayo in northern Peru. The Guardian, in a major investigation, suggests that the site is an offset, but only at 10% of its claimed value. If the state were to link any way suggesting that there's some kind of state endorsement of carbon offsets, it could open it up for litigation. And I believe the Department of Transportation is already facing one climate lawsuit. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Okay, we do have a number of other testifiers, but no one signaling that they'll be here in person or on Zoom. Is there anyone else who would like to testify on this measure? Okay, seeing none, members, do you have any questions? Okay, go ahead, Rep. Lowen.
Let me come up with a question. Henry, good to see you. We haven't seen you all session. I guess, can you more broadly talk about some of the risks of carbon offsets? Just it's sort of hard to quantify, verify, and like even know like a time frame for when the offset might occur compared to when the emissions are emitted.
Those are certainly very valid points. The other 2 points are leakages, which occurs when you decide to save one site and destroy another site instead of doing it the other way around and claiming a credit, and which is done on a regular basis. I forget the other one. Anyway, there are a lot of problems with it, and the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals in 2020 ruled against a California governmental agency for failing to have verifiable. They listed 4 different criteria on which you have to do. And so there is enormous risk. Basically, there's not enough carbon offsets to save the world. We have to actually reduce emissions.
Do you think that carbon offsets are sometimes used as greenwashing instead of actually reducing direct emissions?
Yes. In order to actually have a good feeling about carbon offsets, We actually have to see the projects and have access to the data. And if the Department of Transportation were to include on their website all the details about the specific carbon offsets and how they are actually carbon offsets, that would be one thing. But simply to rely on a third party and say that because the third party says it, the state is getting behind it is a risk.
Thank you. Thanks, and good to see you.
Thank you.
Nice
members.
seeing all of you.
Okay.
You.
Members, any additional questions? Okay, if not, we're going to move on to HB 1406 relating to environmental protection, which deals with mandatory recycling of asphalt and paving projects. First, in person, we have the Department of Health.
Good morning, Chair Lowen, Chair Todd, Vice Chairs, and committee members. Glenn Ha'ai on behalf of the Department of Health. The department stands on its written testimony providing comments, and we're available to answer any questions. Thanks.
Thank you. And that's the only testimony signaling that it'll be provided in person. Is there anyone else who'd like to testify on this measure? Okay, Ted?
Thank you, Chairs, Vice Chairs, members of the committees. Ted Boland on behalf of the Climate Protectors Hawaii. Recycling asphalt makes a lot of sense. We do a lot of it already. You've seen the trucks grinding up the roads and reusing, which is a great thing. We could do more of it. It would be good for costs, and it would be good for the climate and for the environment. So please move this forward. Thanks very much.
All right, thank you. Any additional testifiers? Okay, go ahead. Or no, never mind, we're good. Members, do you have any questions? Okay, for Rep. Martin and then Rep. Onishi.
I have a question for Department of Health. So in reading the testimony, it seems like they already are doing this on most islands, but not on the Big Island. So would the impact of this bill be to force the Big Island to set up recycling there?
Well, my understanding in discussions with the Department of Transportation is the Big Island doesn't have a permitted facility to accept. We permit the facilities to accept asphalt, concrete, that type of thing. They're already doing it on a lot of the DOT projects. My understanding is except for Hilo side, and it's because when the pavement gets wet, it's difficult to mix it in with the virgin aggregate to recycle. So on the Kona side, not a problem. The stockpiles don't get wet, but on the Hilo side, it is a difficulty, is my understanding.
Okay, Rep. Onishi.
Yeah, for DOT. So in your testimony, for Oahu, I'm sorry. First Department of Health. DOT, I'll get to you in a second. In your testimony, you said that approximately 45,000 tons of cured asphalt is taken to the facilities and only 2,500 tons going to the landfill. What's the difference between that? Why is some going to the landfill and others going to the recycling?
So those numbers are, the 2,500 is going to the construction and demolition landfill here on Oahu. It's the number of tons they accept. I'm not 100% sure because they don't split it out as to whether it's disposal or not. We counted it as disposal. Pavement can be disposed of if it's contaminated with something. So if there's gross contamination of something, sometimes there are remediation sites where the soil is contaminated. That asphalt tends to be disposed of rather than reused. The main type of contamination that we see from the road projects might be lead-based paint in the striping. If they don't remove it before they dig it up, then it could have lead-based paint on it, and that would tend to be disposed of rather than reused.
Okay, do you have any figures for the other counties that have the recycling facilities?
They don't necessarily provide separate numbers for asphalt, so we couldn't provide those numbers, but we can ask the facilities to see what their numbers are for each of them. The only one that we could provide was, again, the Big Island, because they don't have a permitted facility to accept. But we talked to the landfill there to see what might be disposed of there. They said they very rarely get any asphalt there at all. It's either being reused, recycled on the island.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
One final question. So, as far as your programs and your monitoring of existing programs, do you think this bill is necessary?
That's a hard, that's a hard one. It might be necessary on the DOT side, I could say. From our point of view, where, what we see in terms of it going to landfills for disposal, we see very little going to the landfills for disposal. So if that's the intent of the bill, we just don't see a lot of it going there anyway. In terms of whether, you want to set a mandate for a certain percentage of it to be reused in those projects, in the DOT projects, I couldn't say for sure about that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Chair, if I might, for
Yeah,
DOT?
go ahead. Yeah.
Thank you, I know you're not Ed, but
Hi, Red.
I read Ed's testimony also. And my experience on the Big Island, having represented Highway 11, which is quite extensive,
Yes.
I know that DOT, when they have repaving projects, have been using the asphalt to recycle it into the shoulders of Highway 11 especially, because of the small shoulders and trying to increase shoulder space. I wanted to ask you the same question. Do you think this bill is necessary based upon what you folks are doing at the state level in terms of the recycling or the trying to recycle as much of the asphalt as possible?
Right, so we do have staff member Mel should be on. This is her area in DOT. Hopefully she's on. Anyhow, in our testimony, we did mention that we do follow best management practices, which is quite comprehensive in trying to, reuse the asphalt. The question of having enough stockpiles on the Big Island especially, I personally don't know of that many, so we'd have to get back to you on that. But speaking off of what our testimony is, the bill does seem a little redundant to our best practices, best management practices. But of course, if that's something that this body chooses to move forward, then we will, of course, follow
Well,
your
I am
direction.
aware at Panayeva in the median where I know DOT stockpiles used asphalt, and then you see this huge pile, and then all of a sudden it's gone.
Yeah.
And then there's more, and then it's gone. I've been trying to get used asphalt for the Kulani Correctional Facility,
Okay.
for their roads on the facility, and every time we're told, well,
It's
there
being used
isn't
for something.
any
Yeah.
that's available because we're using it, so.
Okay. I think that just needs to have some better coordination between the departments, because as you say, there may be a stockpile that is sitting there for an extended time that could be used elsewhere in the interim. So we'll be happy to work with Department of Corrections.
Okay, thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Let's go to Rep. IU and then Rep. Martin.
For DOT, just a few questions. Where on Oahu is the site that we're recycling or storing asphalt?
I'll have to get back to you on that.
Okay.
I know we have in our report that we just updated in 2021, we do notate all the different sites. And I
Okay.
can get copies of that report to you.
And I guess my follow-up question on this is, does DOT control these sites?
Some are state-owned and others are privately owned.
Okay, so as far as the bill is concerned, is DOT going to be a supplier of asphalt, or how do you guys?
I don't envision us to be a supplier of asphalt. Of course, we'll be using our stockpiles for any state projects first. I believe availability of asphalt to the general public would have to come from the private sector.
Okay, and when you say it's state-run projects, explain how DOT uses this asphalt in its storage facility for state-run projects?
Right, so if we're doing raised crosswalks to, add pedestrian safety, things of that, or bike lanes, anything that would be improving our infrastructure and meets whatever the best management practices are for that surface.
Those projects don't go through procurement?
Some of them do, most of them do, I should say.
Okay.
Yeah.
But so you supply to the...
To ourselves. Because usually, for the most part, it's DOT projects that we would be doing.
Okay.
Of course, if we're partnering with another state agency, then, we'll most likely be the ones supplying that as well.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Rep. Martin?
For the DOT again, do you know, do the city projects on city streets, do they have the same best management practices to reuse?
Sorry, I'm unaware.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, members, any other questions? Okay, seeing none, we're going to move on, thank you, to HB 189 relating to mopeds, which prohibits sale of new mopeds starting in 2030 that have combustion engines. First, we're going to start with the Hawaii State Energy Office.
Good morning, chairs, vice chairs, members of the committee. Joe Calavita from the Hawaii State Energy Office, and we stand on our written comments and are available for any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Hawaiian Style Rentals LLC. I believe they're available on Zoom.
Hello, hello. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, all good. Go for it.
Aloha, Chair Todd, Chair Lowen, and Vice Chair Keela, and Vice Chair Cochran. I do own Hawaiian Style Rentals and Sales in Waikiki. We have 3 moped and bike rental shops specializing in rentals and sales of gas-powered mopeds. I've been in business for 17 years, and I oppose this bill. Mopeds are a great alternative mode of transportation for local people in the state of Hawaii. They're affordable to purchase and maintain. Registration fees are fair. They're easy to park, and they get up to 100 miles per gallon. I don't understand why the state would want to rid local people of an economical, necessary, and useful form of transportation with such a small carbon footprint. As a state, we should be encouraging these alternative forms of transportation rather than outlawing them. I understand that Hawaii's Clean Energy Initiative is set for 2045. We're moving towards more electric modes of transportation, but prohibiting such a fuel-efficient mode of transportation before prohibiting any other automobile seems irresponsible. Also for our industry, there are no viable options in the market or any infrastructure in place for the alternative, which would be electric mopeds. Due to the size of the batteries and range, it's impossible to comfortably navigate the cities without needing to stop and charge the battery for hours at a time right now. Unlike cars, which already have state infrastructure support and battery ranges that allow you to ride all day without having to charge the battery during the day. These inefficiencies and lack of support right now will lead to less sales and rentals for our business too, negatively affecting our small business and ultimately making things a little more expensive for people here in Hawaii. I appreciate your guys' time.
All right, thank you very much. Next, we have mopeds and parts for sale. Robert Sato. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me, everyone. Good morning, committee chairs, vice chairs, all committee members. I'm Robert Sato, and I am the vice president of, I have a supplemental testimony to give to my written testimony. I am the vice president of Moped and Parts for Sale, a local-based moped shop, wholesale and retail since 2012, and I'm a concerned representative of the moped business and user community, and I'm also an expert on gas and electric mopeds. We strongly oppose HB 189, and it should be stopped. The supplemental testimony includes the fact that electric mopeds are far from an adequate substitute for Hawaii's gas moped using community, as they cost at least double to triple. They have shorter ranges. They take much longer to refuel. For example, 6 hours versus 2 minutes. And there is no charging infrastructure statewide, just like the gentleman from Hawaiian Style said. And this gap is not going away anytime soon. Quiet EPA-approved, economical, low-carbon footprint, gas-powered four-stroke mopeds already exist as an ideal solution with minimal ecological impact and noise. It's a few decibels below, it's a few decibels above, just a little bit above electric mopeds. So the noise pollution issue is very much addressed with these new technology mopeds, which we deal in. They have greater practical usability and are cheaper to boot for the average user than any electric version is. It is one of the very few truly affordable practical means of basic personal transportation in Hawaii. And prematurely banning the sale of gas mopeds in Hawaii will impact the many local businesses, drivers, students, and others that rely on them for their livelihood and daily activities. Almost all food drivers, for example, Uber Eats, all those kind of businesses, all those drivers, they drive gas-powered mopeds, as electric is not practical for their use. Most rental companies, like Mr. Nathan there with Hawaiian Style Rentals, still need the gas and go advantage for their customers and will do so for a very long time to come. It will cripple, if not eliminate, dozens of businesses, hundreds of jobs, and millions of dollars in potential revenue. The environmental, ecological, and road quality impact of Hawaii is 20,000. We only have 20,000 plus gas-powered mopeds in Hawaii. That's minuscule compared to the wear and tear that Hawaii's infrastructure absorbs daily from the hundreds of thousands of gas-powered cars out there that travel far greater ranges than mopeds do. There's a huge difference between one person on a moped, a gas-powered moped, versus one person on a car. And like he said, they do get 100 miles a gallon, some more. That's better than a hybrid electric car. Gas and electric mopeds can coexist for different reasons. If new sales of gas mopeds are to be phased out, they should be done so at the same time all other gas-powered vehicles, including cars, are. Mahalo for your time.
All right, thank
If you have any questions, please feel free to ask.
All right, thank you very much. Okay, I believe that's, oh, actually, we do have testimony, I believe on Zoom from the Retail Merchants of Hawaii. No? Okay. Is there anyone else who'd like to testify on this measure? If not, members, do you have any questions?
Chair.
Okay, Rep. Onishi, go for it.
Yeah, for State Energy Office. Hi, thanks for being here. In your testimony, you said ground transportation accounts for about 20% of all greenhouse gas emissions in the state. What percentage of that 20% is moped emissions?
I don't have that figure, but it's a very, very small percentage of that.
What would you consider very, very small? 1%?
Yeah, probably less than 1%.
So we are looking at banning the sale of mopeds in the future for 1% of 20% of emissions in the state.
Well, that's true, but I think, yeah, I'll just answer the question.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you, Chair.
Okay. Members, any additional questions?
Sure.
Rep. Lowen?
Oh, do you want to go first?
Oh, sorry. Either way.
Okay, quick question. Does the state have the same prohibition for cars or other motorized vehicles?
No, we do not.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, quick question, thanks. Is the state undertaking efforts to also decarbonize, not just mopeds, but passenger vehicles, other forms of transportation?
Yeah, I think to reach our goals in 2045, we're going to have to decarbonize across the board, from the smallest to the largest, and of course, mopeds are an important option for people, because people have a diversity of travel needs and.
Well, the question was,
Yes, we are.
The state has actions in place that beyond just mopeds, we're obviously taking other steps to decarbonize the transportation
Yes.
sector. Okay. Can I ask another question? I think there was a gentleman online,
Is that Hawaiian Style Rentals?
Hawaiian Style Rentals.
Yep, I'm here. Hello.
I guess, I appreciate the, I think the goal of this bill is not just about decarbonizing, but the fact that, maybe not the new sales of mopeds are the worst offenders, but a lot of mopeds that exist are very loud and very dirty.
100%.
And it's
Yeah.
a frustration to residents to, have to hear it. There's a lot of noise pollution that has health impacts also. And then I think are emissions of mopeds regulated like cars?
Yeah, well, the federal government, the EPA, emits them. And, there are restrictions on it that are put on by the federal government, the EPA.
Are they as strict as they are for automobiles?
They have, I know Yes, in the past decade, they've become a lot more strict, and they've actually outlawed a lot of certain types of motors have been outlawed because they don't comply with the more strict standards.
All right, let me ask the same question of the State Energy Office. Are emissions of mopeds regulated the same way that emissions from automobiles are?
Yes, that's a great question. Yes, they also they do have regulations for mopeds in terms of oxides of nitrogen and volatile organic compounds. And,
Are they as strictly regulated?
I think they're as strict as technically feasible. Emissions from cars have gone down so much; they're 99% cleaner than they have been in the past. So, I'm not sure if the emissions from mopeds have gone down as much, but they're.
Okay, maybe you can let us know. I think that the
Okay.
regulations on mopeds are much less strict, so the emissions per sort of capita of moped is much greater actually than for automobiles.
Yes, we'll get back to you with that.
Okay,
All
thank
right,
you.
Thank you.
Okay, members, any additional questions? Okay, seeing none, we're going to move on to the last bill on our agenda, HB 1278, which is relating to green transportation infrastructure. First up, we have the Department of Land and Natural Resources. Okay, thank you. And next, the Office of Planning and Sustainable Development.
Aloha chairs, vice chairs, members of the committee. Happy Valentine's Day. My name is Danielle Bass, the State of Hawaii Sustainability Coordinator. Our office submits comments in support of HB 1278, noting that this is actually much in alignment with two of our initiatives. First off, the State Greenhouse Gas Sequestration Task Force, in which we've worked with our partners at both DOT and the DLNR to create a permitted interaction group on urban green infrastructure, and that draft report is available online. Secondly, in the publication of the Hawaii 2050 Sustainability Plan, charting the course for the decade of action, which is this decade, which serves as our state's decennial climate and sustainability strategic action plan, we've actually identified 9 recommendations from that plan that align with the intent of this measure. I'm available for questions. Mahalo for the opportunity to testify.
All right, thank you. I believe that's all of the testimony we're expecting in person, but Ted, if you'd like to testify.
Thank you, Chair Todd, Chair Lowen, Vice Chair Tequila, and Vice Chair Cochran. Ted Boland for the Climate Protectors Hawaii. Green transportation infrastructure, like the bill that was heard in EEP earlier with green infrastructure, has several benefits. And I want to thank Representative Martin and Representative Lowen and others for introducing this bill. It not only saves water and costs, it also makes the environment more comfortable for people who are benefiting from the vegetation and the trees. So on sort of in a bunch of different ways, this is a good thing to do, and I urge passage of the bill. Thank you very much.
Great, thank you. Is there anyone else who'd like to testify in person? Okay. If not, members, do you have any questions?
Yeah, I do.
Okay. Rep. Onishi?
Yeah, for the, let's see, sorry. Oh, State Office of Planning. Hey, how you doing? Thanks for being here. I had a question. In the testimony, it says that HB 1278 is generally in alignment with the work of the State Greenhouse Gas Sequestration Task Force. So what in the bill is not being addressed or covered by the task force?
So the task force has several mandates established on them pursuant to Hawaii Revised Statutes 225P-4 to help the state achieve the state's zero emissions clean economy target by 2045. Through that task force, they actually created multiple permitted interaction groups to then report to the legislature with findings. One of those permitted interaction groups is this urban green infrastructure permitted interaction group, in which we worked with the DOT and our partners in DLNR to write. I think it's about 12 to 15 pages long. And so we just find this to be in alignment generally. We support these initiatives. We support green infrastructure for our transportation areas, as well as across the state and our communities.
Okay, so pretty much it's in alignment with the
Yes,
bill?
yes.
That permitted interaction groups work has
Yes.
covered much of what's in this bill?
Yes, Representative.
Okay. If I might, since DOT is still here. So I wanted to follow up with you in regards to this bill and the placement of this infrastructure task force in the department, and your participation with the permitted
The pig.
whatever. Do you think this is necessary?
I'm going to defer to Stuart, our staff member who's online. This is his area of expertise. Stuart, were you able to hear Representative's question?
Correct. If it's, I guess he's asking if this bill is really necessary, given the previous bills and acts that are already in place. Yeah, that I don't know all the details, so yeah, it's hard for me to comment on that. I'm not sure what's in place now as versus what this bill is proposing.
Sorry, I'm sure that didn't answer your question.
No, not
I'll get
at
back
all.
to you, Representative.
Okay. Okay, thanks.
Okay.
I mean,
And-
if nobody can answer.
Oh, yeah. Anyone else? Okay, if not, we're gonna recess for decision-making. Recess. Thank you. We are reconvening our 10:30 a.m. agenda in the Committees on Transportation and Energy and Environmental Protection for the purposes of decision-making. First, we're going to HB 1165. The chair's recommendation is to defer this measure, noting the testimony which was heavily in opposition. And that's it. Next, we're going to move on to HB 1406 relating to environmental protection. This is the asphalt recycling bill. I do think that there are some concerns this may not be necessary, but I would like to use this as an opportunity to maybe gather more information in future hearings, particularly around maybe the East Hawaii issue with the rain, which I'm very familiar with. So maybe I'll note that in the committee report that it's something we'd like to look into. But other than that, the recommendation will be to pass this as an HD1 with a defective date of June 30th, 3000. Members, do you have any questions or comments?
Chair,
Rep.
I
Onishi?
just have concerns that things are already being done, and this may be redundant. I know, as far as for East Hawaii, my experience in trying to acquire asphalt for the support of the Kulani Correctional Facilities, and I've talked to the state DOT, I've talked to the county, I've talked to private contractors doing work for both the state and the county, asking them if I can get surplus asphalt for them, and it's not available. So, because of the uses by the county and the state in terms of road improvements. So, I don't know that this is really necessary. I can see where, it is a concern. And looking at the quantities that were measured on Oahu, it seems like there isn't an issue. So, with that being said, I'm going to be voting no on this bill. I think it's redundant.
Okay, thank you. Okay, anyone else on either committee? Okay, if not, Vice Chair, or I guess, yeah, Vice Chair for the vote on HB 1406.
Mahalo, Chair. Voting on HB 1406, the Chair's recommendation is to pass with amendments. Chair and Vice Chair voting aye. Representative Ayu?
Aye.
Representative Hashimoto? Excused. Representative Kitagawa? Excused. Representative Martin?
Aye.
Representative Onishi?
No.
Representative Matsumoto? Excused. Chair, your recommendation is adopted.
Committee on Energy and Environmental Protection, same recommendation.
Voting on HB 1406, Chair, same recommendation, and Chair, Vice Chair vote aye. Let's see, and Rep. Gates?
Aye.
Aye. Rep. Kahaloa?
Aye.
Rep. Peruso?
Aye.
And excused are Reps. Woodson and Ward. Your Chair, your measure is adopted.
All right, thank you. We're going to be moving on to HB 189 relating to mopeds. Chair's recommendation is to defer this measure, noting a lot of the testimony about the current fuel efficiency, the cost differences between the electric market and the kind of traditional combustion engine market. I think this is something that will probably come eventually, but we may need the market to develop a little bit further on the electric side and present some more viable alternatives. So the plan is to defer for the time being. Next, we have HB 1278, the last bill on the agenda relating to green transportation infrastructure. We're going to make a series, or recommend a series of amendments that are largely technical in nature or small cleanup things. So let's see if I read the legal language correctly. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to add in the Office of Hawaiian Affairs, or a representative from the Office of Hawaiian Affairs as a task force member, as noted by a request in their testimony. Additionally, we're going to insert some language that clarifies best practice standards. That's noted in the outdoor circle testimony. And then on the technical side of things, we're going to add a new section to Chapter 264, Part 10, to incorporate a definition of green infrastructure to conform to technical amendments that are recommended by our House attorneys. And we will change the date for the task force dissolution to 2025 to conform to when the report is required. And we'll also add additional technical amendments for clarity and consistency, as well as defecting the date to June 30th, 3000. So with that, members, do you have any questions or comments? Okay.
Chair,
Okay, Rep.
again,
Onishi.
I think there is some redundancy. We're going to be establishing a group of people to look at an issue, I think, that is trying to be addressed. I think if there are concerns that the legislature has in regards to the work that's being done, then that should be communicated, I think, directly through the existing structure that we have set up. So with that, I'll be voting with reservations.
All right, thank you. Any additional comments, concerns? Okay, seeing none, Vice Chair for the vote on HB 1278.
Mahalo, Chair. Voting on HB 1278, the Chair's recommendation is to pass with amendments. Voting to excuse absences of Representatives Hashimoto, Kitagawa, and Matsumoto. Noting the vote of reservations from Representative Onishi. Are there any other members choosing to vote with reservations? Any other members choosing to vote no? Chair, your measure is adopted.
Committee on Energy and Environmental Protection, same recommendation. Members, any discussion? If not, Vice Chair, please take the vote.
Voting on HB 1278, Chair elects to pass with amendment. Chair, Vice Chair vote aye. Noting excused absences of Reps. Woodson and Ward. Any members here voting no or with reservations? Seeing none, Chair, your measure is adopted.
All right, thank you. We are adjourned.